You open your phone, no messages, no missed calls, no sign of her at all. At first, you tell yourself she's just busy. Maybe she's got work, friends, family, or something else that came up. But as hours turn into days, your mind starts looping through every last word you said, replaying, analyzing, doubting. It becomes harder to ignore the silence. And that silence? It's not just empty space. It's loaded with questions, assumptions, and power. But here's the truth. When a woman stops texting, it doesn't always mean she's lost interest. Sometimes, it means she's testing the emotional gap. Not because she's playing games, but because something in her mind is shifting, and she wants to see what you'll do with her distance. Here's what she might not tell you. Pulling back gives her control. It gives her a moment to breathe, reflect, and decide what she wants next. She's watching how you respond to her silence. Not just the messages you send, but the energy you carry without saying a word. Are you chasing? Are you over-texting? Are you suddenly showing more interest now that she's pulled away? Because that right there, that's the pattern she's checking for. Not because she's cruel, but because she's seen it happen before. A man only values her attention when it's not easily available. So when she stops texting, she's not always gone. She's observing quietly, wondering if you'll keep your center or if you'll fall out of alignment just to pull her back. And that's where most guys fail. They flood her inbox. They start asking, "Did I do something wrong?" They begin spiraling into self-doubt, trying to fix a problem that might not even exist, just to feel in control again. But here's what she's really looking for. A man who doesn't chase uncertainty. A man who's so rooted in his own sense of peace, presence, and purpose that her silence doesn't shake him. It makes him even more magnetic. That's the kind of man she can't stop thinking about, even if she doesn't reply. Here's the part no one talks about. Sometimes, when she's not texting, it's because she wants to know what you feel in the absence. Not what you say, not what you post, but who you become when she's not giving you the same energy she used to. This is where the real shift happens in her mind. She's not waiting for a message. She's wondering if she left an impression. Because deep down, every woman wants to feel like her presence mattered. But she also wants to feel what it's like when her absence echoes just as loudly. She's not ignoring you for fun. She's watching to see if your world keeps turning, or if it falls apart without her. And if it does, if you chase hard, if you react emotionally, if you let her silence control your self-worth, she gets her answer. But if you stay grounded, if you show no need for constant reassurance, if you move with calm confidence, if you don't reach just to feel seen, she starts to question her distance. She starts to wonder why you're not affected, why you're not chasing validation like the others, why her absence didn't shake you up, didn't break your routine, didn't make you collapse like she expected. That's when her mind starts racing. She rereads the messages. She revisits old moments. She starts thinking not about what she said or didn't say, but about how you stayed solid when she pulled away. And that's rare, because most men crumble. Most men take the bait. They fold under the pressure of being left on red. But not you. You're not giving her emotional control over your inner state, because you've realized something most people never do. When you respond to distance with calm, you shift the dynamic completely. Now, instead of her feeling like the prize, you become the one she can't figure out. You're not mad, you're not cold, you're just focused. Focused on your life, your peace, your standards. And she can feel it, even through silence, especially through silence. Because the truth is, The most unforgettable men are the ones who don't need reminders of their worth. They don't prove it, they live it. Here's the part she didn't prepare for. She thought if she went quiet, you'd start doubting yourself, that you'd question your value, that you'd start scrambling for her attention, trying to patch things up, maybe even apologize for things you didn't do, just to restore the connection. But when you didn't do that, when you gave her the silence right back without bitterness, without spite, that's when it started to sting. Because now she's sitting in the exact space she created, and it's colder than she thought. She expected you to fill in the silence. Instead, you honored it. She expected you to chase. Instead, you took your energy back like it was never up for negotiation. And now she's wondering, was he really that unfazed? Or was he just that grounded? That's what keeps replaying in her mind. Not the silence itself, but your response to it. She starts asking herself questions she never had to ask before. Why hasn't he reached out? Is he already talking to someone else? Did I misread his feelings? Did I matter as much as I thought I did? It doesn't chase. It forces her to sit with her own actions, to take accountability, and to face the gap between what she expected and what she actually received. See, when a woman feels emotionally safe with a man and steps back, only to find that he didn't move, it changes everything. Suddenly, you're not the emotional backup plan. You're the standard she didn't realize she couldn't reach without real growth. And here's the kicker. When she's not texting, it doesn't mean she's not thinking. In fact, the less she texts, the more mental space she gives you, because silence creates space, and space creates reflection. But the reflection isn't about you, it's about her. Her patterns, her mixed signals, her emotional inconsistency. And when that clarity starts to hit, so does the regret. Not because she's desperate, but because she knows she just showed her cards to someone who never asked to play the game in the first place. You didn't push her to change. You just didn't participate in the confusion. And that's what she'll remember. You didn't need closure. You became it. Silence is easy when she's in control. When she knows you'll be the first to crack, to send that hey just to test the waters, to remind her you still care. But the moment she realizes you're not doing that your silence isn't a waiting game but a lifestyle upgrade, things get complicated for her. Now the story in her mind starts to unravel. She starts thinking about how quickly you adjusted, how you didn't resist the shift, how you just kept living, kept working, kept glowing without skipping a beat. That calmness, it's not just attractive, it's intimidating. Why? Because it suggests something she didn't consider before. You were never attached, not the way she thought. You cared, yes. You showed up, you gave presence and attention, depth. But when it came time to let go, you didn't beg, you didn't panic, you didn't even flinch. And now she's caught between two emotions she didn't expect to feel at the same time: confusion and curiosity. Confusion, because she's not used to men walking away without resistance. Curiosity, because she's starting to realize maybe you weren't like the rest at all. She scrolls past your posts, wondering if there's a hidden message. She notices the confidence in your tone, the discipline in your vibe, and whether she admits it or not, it's getting to her. Not in a dramatic, crying on the floor kind of way, but in those quiet, private moments where she realizes, I thought he'd wait, but maybe I was the one being waited on. That switch, that's what starts breaking the illusion of control. For the first time, she has to consider that maybe it was you who brought the balance. You who kept the emotional space calm. You who made the connection feel real, without needing constant reassurance or playing games. And now that energy is gone, not withdrawn to punish her, but redirected, elevated. Because a man who respects his peace more than her patterns, that man becomes unforgettable. Not because of how much he gave, but because of how powerfully he let go when it was time. Now, she's not just thinking about you. She's remembering how rare you are, and that's something no silence can cover up. Here's where things shift. Without a word being spoken, the silence that once felt empowering to her starts turning on her. Not because anything dramatic happens, but because nothing happens at all. You don't chase. You don't reach. You don't check in. And it's that quiet consistency that unnerves her the most, because it signals something her ego didn't prepare for. You didn't need her attention to validate your position in her life. That right there is rare, because most guys, when they sense a woman pulling away, go into overdrive. They double their effort. They try to rekindle the spark. They flood her phone with long texts, half apologies, and emotionally loaded messages that scream, "I still care. Please notice me." But not you. You stayed still. You stayed focused. You kept building. And now she's the one left wondering if the bond meant more to her than she let on. Wondering if she mistook your calm for a lack of care. Wondering why it hurts more that you didn't react than if you had. Because here's the truth no one tells her. Your lack of reaction wasn't indifference. It was self-respect. And for a woman who's used to emotional fireworks every time she goes silent, your peace hits harder than any paragraph you could have sent. Now she starts retracing the timeline in her head, not to blame, but to understand. Because when you removed your energy, something shifted in her world. Even if her pride won't let her say it, it starts in the small ways. She thinks about texting you, but doesn't. Then she wonders if it's too late to fix the gap. Then she talks herself out of it. She tells herself, he probably moved on, but still checks your stories, still notices when you're online, still pays attention to the quiet confidence you're radiating. Because it's not just your absence she feels, it's the certainty that came with it. That's the part she didn't expect. Not just the fact that you walked away, but how gracefully you did it. Without games, without drama, and without one last push for her to stay. You didn't fight to prove your worth. You let her discover it in your absence. Now, every hour that passes without your attention feels heavier than she thought it would. What she didn't calculate was how heavy silence becomes when it echoes back with strength. At first, it felt empowering to withhold her energy, to stop texting, to pull back and convince herself she was simply protecting her peace. But now the silence doesn't feel strong. It feels hollow. Because the only thing she hears in it now is the lack of your presence. Not your words, not your compliments, not your validation, your energy. The kind of energy that didn't try to impress, but made her feel grounded. Slowly, that internal dialogue begins to shift. It's no longer, he's probably wondering what I'm doing. Now it's, why hasn't he even tried? Not out of entitlement, but because she's starting to understand something deeper. You weren't trying to win her over. You were showing her who you were. And now that you've gone quiet, she realizes just how loud your consistency actually was. Here's what silence does that texting never can. It creates space for reflection. And in that space, her narrative starts to fall apart. All the little reasons she told herself for stepping back, now they sound weak. All the assumptions she made about you moving too fast or being too available, now they feel like excuses. And what replaces those excuses? Regret. Regret that she mistook your emotional availability for weakness. Regret that she didn't realize what she had while it was still in front of her. Regret that the one man who showed up without a mask is the one who disappeared without a trace. But this time, it's not ghosting. It's not payback. It's alignment. You didn't leave to punish her. You just refused to stay in a space where your value had to be constantly re-explained. And as she sits in that realization, scrolling, overthinking, second-guessing, she's not thinking about how to win you back. She's thinking about what she lost. Because now she understands you were the rare one, the calm in the chaos, the man who didn't flinch when she tested the waters. And that's the kind of presence that sticks. Not through reminders, not through chasing, not through texts, but through the quiet memory of who you were when things got distant, and how you never once had to beg to be remembered. Now she sits with the weight of everything left unsaid. Not because she's angry, not because she stopped caring, but because her silence, once used as a tool to pull you in, became a mirror that showed her exactly who she lost. See, the distance she created was never supposed to last. She expected you to hold space for her, to wait, to linger somewhere in the background, keeping the flame warm just in case she changed her mind. But you didn't. You didn't sit in that uncertainty. You didn't hand over your peace in exchange for potential. You simply let the story end when it was no longer mutual. And that right there, that's what flipped the script in her mind. Because now she's realizing that silence isn't safe anymore. It's not just time passing. It's connection fading. It's her recognizing that while she hesitated, you evolved. And maybe, just maybe, you outgrew what she only ever half chose. She scrolls through your page. She replays old messages in her mind. She remembers how calm you were, how you never begged, how you always showed up with clarity, never confusion. And now that you're gone, now she gets to sit with everything she once took for granted. But here's the truth you need to keep close. You didn't walk away to hurt her. You walked away because you finally realized that love without reciprocity isn't strength. It's self-neglect. You started giving that attention, that warmth, that energy to yourself. And in doing that, you became even more powerful. Because nothing scares someone more than the moment they realize you healed in silence. You didn't text. You didn't post indirect messages. You didn't seek closure. You became the closure. And now, every quiet second that passes only confirms to her one thing. You weren't reacting. You were resetting. And from that reset came clarity. From that clarity came peace. And from that peace came a version of you that she never expected to face. A man who doesn't return to where he wasn't respected. A man who doesn't chase validation because he's already centered in self-worth. A man who lets go, not because he stopped feeling, but because he finally started protecting those feelings. So here's what you do now. Keep building, keep growing, keep becoming the man who turns silence into a strategy, not a struggle. Because your value was never in what you gave her. It was in what you chose to withhold once you saw she wasn't ready. And if this message resonated with you, if you feel that shift happening inside of you, don't stop here. There's another video waiting for you right now. Click it, watch it, level up again. Not to win her back, but to make sure you never lose yourself again. That's the part she didn't expect. Not just the fact that you walked away, but how gracefully you did it. Without games, without drama, and without one last push for her to stay. You didn't fight to prove your worth. You let her discover it in your absence.